Welcome to In Silico Trials Real Impact, the In Silico UK podcast that's revolutionizing the way we think about medical innovation. I'm Professor Alejandro Frangi from the University of Manchester, and I'll be your guide through this fascinating world of In Silico Technologies. In each episode, we'll dive into cutting-edge research and groundbreaking news that are shaping the future of medical product development and regulation. From computational modeling to simulated clinical trials, we are exploring how digital approaches are transforming healthcare, making it safer, more efficient, more equitable, and incredibly precise. So, whether you're a researcher, regulator, a member of the public, or a patient representative, or simply curious about the future of medicine, tune in as we unravel the complex world of in silico methods and their real-world impact. Get ready to discover how computer-simulated trials are leading to very real breakthroughs in patient care. In Silico Trials, Real Impact, where algorithms and data are saving lives. Let's begin.
Okay, so ready to dive into some fascinating new recommendations for creating equitable AI in healthcare.
Sounds good.
Great. We're talking about the Standing Together initiative, and their work was just published in the Lancet Digital Health.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so their goal to make sure AI in healthcare benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Absolutely. And I think, we've seen what can happen when technology isn't designed with everyone in mind.
Exactly. Like during COVID-19.
Oh, right.
When a lack of diversity in research data actually hindered efforts to understand how the virus was impacting different ethnic groups.
Really hindered those efforts, yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, less than a quarter of the data sets even considered basic demographics like race or ethnicity.
Yeah, and that's a problem that goes way beyond COVID-19.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about the very foundation of healthcare AI.
Exactly.
If the data used to train these systems isn't diverse, it can lead to biased algorithms that could misdiagnose or recommend ineffective treatments for certain groups.
It's a big deal. So what are these Standing Together recommendations proposing to fix this?
Well, they've put forth 29 specific recommendations, all focused on making healthcare data more inclusive and transparent.
Yeah, okay.
So think robust data curation, identifying and addressing biases in existing data sets, and being open about the limitations of the data.
So transparency is a big one here.
Huge. They really stress the need for everyone to know what data is being used, where it came from, and any potential biases it might have.
That makes sense. And you know what I find particularly interesting is their emphasis on patient involvement.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's not just about scientists and doctors making all the decisions.
No, they recognize that patients need a seat at the table when developing these technologies.
Yeah.
After all, it's their health that's at stake.
Right.
And they really put this into practice. The Standing Together initiative actively included diverse patient and public members in designing the process, co-authoring publications, and shaping the recommendations.
That's pretty remarkable. So what kind of impact are you hoping to see from these recommendations?
Well, ideally, these recommendations will serve as a blueprint for developing AI that is not only effective, but ethical and equitable as well. It's about setting a new standard for how we approach data in healthcare.
That's a good point. And it's interesting because this focus on high-quality representative data isn't limited to AI.
Right.
It's also crucial for In Silico Technologies. Have you heard of those?
Of course, In Silico Technologies are essentially a way to simulate biological processes on a computer, like using a computational model to predict the effects of a new drug.
So just like AI, the accuracy of those models hinges on the quality of the data they're built on.
Precisely. The same principles apply, whether we're talking about AI diagnosing a patient or an in silico model predicting drug interactions. We need to be mindful of bias representation and the potential consequences of flawed data.
It's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Oh, I like that.
It doesn't matter how impressive the house is if the foundation can't support it.
That's a great analogy. The guidelines for developing trustworthy AI are very relevant to the data that informs those in silico models. Both fields need to pay close attention to those same issues.
And the Standing Together recommendations offer some insights into those issues. For example, they found that over half of the data sets used for clinical AI come from either the USA or China.
Which obviously creates a very limited global perspective.
Right.
It's not surprising then that their recommendations call for more global representation in data sets.
Yeah.
We need to ensure AI technologies are relevant and effective for everyone, no matter where they live.
Makes sense. And what about the types of data being used? Did they find any issues there?
They did. Almost 70% of AI models for oncology, for instance, rely on CT, MRI, and PE technologies.
Okay.
These are important tools, but they're often inaccessible to patients in low-income countries.
So that creates a kind of technological bias, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If we only train AI on data from expensive, high-tech procedures, we're excluding a significant portion of the global population. And that means we could be missing out on valuable insights. And it really highlights the need for a more balanced approach.
Yeah.
One that takes into account the realities of healthcare access around the world.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about other potential biases hiding in the data we're using.
Oh, it's a real concern. Let's say you're developing an AI to diagnose skin cancer.
Okay.
If the data used to train that AI mostly comes from lighter-skinned individuals, it might not be as accurate in diagnosing skin cancer in people with darker skin tones.
That's a perfect example of how bias can creep into these systems even unintentionally.
Right.
It's like a hidden flaw that could have real consequences for people.
Exactly, and that's why these recommendations emphasize the importance of not only diversifying data sources, but also examining where the data comes from and scrutinizing it for potential bias. It's about being proactive rather than waiting for these biases to surface and potentially harm patients.
So essentially, it's about building these systems with a sense of responsibility from the very beginning.
Absolutely. And a key part of that responsibility is transparency.
Okay.
The more we understand about the data that fuels these AI systems, the better equipped we are to identify and address potential biases.
But these are just recommendations.
Yeah.
What happens if researchers or companies just don't adopt them?
That's a valid point. These recommendations aren't legally binding or enforced in any way.
Okay.
Their impact really depends on how widely they're embraced by researchers, developers, policymakers, and the healthcare industry as a whole.
So how do we ensure these recommendations actually lead to real change?
It's going to take a collective effort. The Standing Together initiative has laid the groundwork. Now it's up to all of us scientists, developers, clinicians, policymakers, and even patients to build on that foundation.
You mentioned patients. What role can they play in advocating for more equitable AI?
Patients can be incredibly powerful advocates.
Yeah.
The more they understand about the importance of data diversity, the more they can demand it from their healthcare providers, researchers, and policymakers. They can also support organizations that are championing this cause, like Standing Together.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about on a more individual level? Are there things we can do in our own lives to make a difference?
Absolutely. Being mindful of the information you share with healthcare providers is a great first step. Make sure your medical records accurately reflect your race, ethnicity, and any other factors that could be relevant to your care.
So it's about being an active participant in your own healthcare journey.
Exactly. The more complete and accurate your medical information is, the better equipped healthcare providers and researchers will be to develop AI systems that work for everyone. And it's not just about healthcare, is it? These same ideas apply to other areas where AI is being used: education, finance, criminal justice.
It seems like data diversity is quickly becoming a fundamental issue across many different fields.
It is, and it's a social justice issue at its core.
Wow.
We need to ensure that AI technologies are used fairly and equitably, regardless of someone's background or circumstances. And that starts with the data.
It's almost like we're at a crossroads. AI has this incredible potential to improve our lives.
Yeah.
But we need to be careful about how we develop and deploy it.
I agree. We can't simply assume that an algorithm trained on data from one population group will work effectively for another. We need to be intentional about inclusivity from the very beginning.
And that intentionality needs to extend beyond AI to other technologies that rely on data, like those in silico models we discussed earlier.
Right. Whether we're talking about AI diagnosing a disease or an in silico model predicting the effects of a new drug, we need to ensure that the data underpinning those technologies is diverse, representative, and free from bias.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. I'm starting to see how data diversity is not just a technical issue, but a much broader societal one.
It is. And as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives, we all have a responsibility to ensure that it's used in a way that benefits everyone.
So what's the most important takeaway from all of this? If our listeners walk away remembering just one thing, what should it be?
That diversity in data is essential for ethical and effective AI. And this applies across the board, from healthcare to finance, education, and beyond. We can't just assume that one size fits all when it comes to data. We need to be deliberate about inclusivity from the very start.
Yeah, it feels like we're just scratching the surface of a much larger conversation here.
We are. This issue of data diversity is going to become so important as AI becomes more prevalent in our lives.
And as you said, this isn't just about healthcare. It's about education, finance, criminal justice, really any field where AI is being used.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing conversation. The standing together recommendations, they're a significant step, but the work is far from over.
Right.
We need to keep pushing for greater diversity and inclusivity in data and AI development.
So where do we go from here? What can our listeners do to be a part of this change?
Well, it starts with awareness. The more people understand the importance of data diversity, the more they can demand it from the companies and organizations developing and using these technologies.
So we can all be advocates in our own way.
Absolutely. You can start by supporting organizations working to promote equitable AI, like the Standing Together initiative. But there are also things you can do on a personal level.
Like what? What kind of action can individuals take?
Well, think about the information you share. When you're interacting with healthcare providers, for example, make sure your medical records accurately reflect your race, ethnicity, and any other factors that could be relevant to your care.
So it's about being proactive and making sure our data is as complete and accurate as possible.
Exactly. That's a simple but powerful way to contribute to the development of AI systems that work for everyone. And remember, don't be afraid to ask questions. When you encounter AI in your life, think about where the data comes from, how it's being used, and who benefits from it.
It's almost like we need to become more data literate as a society.
I think you're right. We need to be critical consumers of these technologies and demand better. Demand more transparency, more accountability, and more inclusivity from the companies and organizations developing and deploying these systems.
Because ultimately, this is about fairness and equity. It's about ensuring that everyone has access to the benefits of AI, regardless of their background or circumstances.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The future of AI depends on it.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this conversation has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to learn more about this crucial topic. Data diversity is not just a technical issue, it's a societal one, and we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.